House of Representatives has threatened to issue an arrest warrant on the Governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, directors of the Apex Bank, and chief executives of bank that refused to honor the invitation of the House. Tunji Olanikbeku brings us the report.
To the expiration of the deadline given by the Central Bank of Nigeria to phase out the old 1,000 naira, 500 naira, and 200 naira denomination. But with complaints of scarcity of the new naira notes by Nigerians, which has become a major issue in the last few weeks, affecting business transactions and hampering economic activities, the House of Representatives invited the CBN and bank chiefs to clarify the complaints. The CBN and the bank CEOs were initially scheduled to appear on Wednesday, but could not appear because of the late correspondence to them, and the meeting was rescheduled for Thursday. While the House Ad Hoc Committee on the issue was waiting for the CBN Governor on Thursday, Speaker, House of Representatives, announced to his colleagues on the floor that he just received a letter from the CBN that the Governor will not be available because he's on a trip with the President to Senegal. Emefieles expressed displeasure with the development, which he said is insensitive of the regulators to the plight of Nigerians.
The Central Bank Act under Section 20 allows the central bank to change the legal tender. But it also says that even 5 months after, 3 months after, 2 months after, even in June, any old note presented to the bank shall be redeemed by the bank. That point needs to be made to the central bank and to the public.
The House of Representatives is expected to go on recess this week, but the visibly angry Emefieles said the House will not go on recess until the central bank governor and the bank chiefs appear before it. Emefieles says if Emefiele and the bank CEOs refuse to appear, the House will have no other choice than to invoke Section 89D of the Constitution and Order 19 of the Standing Order of the House of Representatives.
The refusal by the CBN or managing directors to heed the invitation by the House of Representatives is evidence of a blatant disregard for the well-being of the Nigerian people who are their customers. It is also an insult to the authority and prerogatives of the People's Parliament. Therefore, if by the end of today there is further disregard to the summons of this House, I will, without hesitation, issue a warrant to the Inspector General of the Nigerian Police to compel the attendance of the CBN and or managing directors who fail, refuse, or neglect to respond to the summons by the House of Representatives.
The House insists its intervention is in the interest of the people, as representatives of Nigerians who have heard the complaints of the people on the new currency scarcity and its imminent effect on the livelihood of the masses.
All right, a lot to talk about this morning.
Well, good morning, everyone. And still on this is an update on the Naira redesign. And now the CBN Governor has been was summoned by the National Assembly to come before it following the institution of an ad hoc committee headed by Honorable Dogowa Al-Hassan, a majority leader, to interface between the CBN and bank CEOs, deposit money bank CEOs and, senior officials. What we see there is that is a follow-up of claims by banks that they haven't received the new Naira notes, hence their inability to dispense to their customers. In the past few weeks, we have talked about the fact that people say that when they go to their ATMs or automated teller machines or to the banks, they are unable to access new notes. So what we've had is people are going to deposit old notes and getting back the old notes when they try to get money out of the ATMs. And in investigating this, whilst the CBN on one hand is saying we have dispersed, the money is available, some banks are refusing to come and collect. In fact, to this effect, the CBN had put a penalty that for every day a bank does not come in to take the notes allocated to them, they'd be fined by 1 million naira. And the banks, on the other hand, are saying that, well, the CBN is not giving us what we need. They're giving us a bit, but it's not enough to cater to our customers. In fact, the CEO, the bank representatives who were present before the committee had said that they were receiving 60%, 70%, 80% of the old notes that they had deposited as new notes from the Central Bank of Nigeria. So the National Assembly, in investigating this, thought it was important to then bring both sides of the party to appear before them to defend themselves as to who is really telling the truth. Is it the CBN who is saying that we have given enough money, or the banks who are saying we haven't received enough money? Who is jeopardizing this new Naira, the Naira redesign from being implemented come the 1st of February? Because by the 31st of January, I think we should even still stop saying it by dates. By Tuesday of next week, 31st of January, is going to cease to be legal tender. Now, this is not the first time the National Assembly has invited the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Governor Emefiele, to appear before it to explain or to speak to the House as to, number one, the issues around the fact that people were not having access to these new notes, why the distribution wasn't spread across, and also to present the case that people who lived in the hinterland or in rural areas in particular were largely affected by this because they didn't have access to the cash, access to the new notes. In December of 2022, the Deputy Governor of the CBN, represented Mrs. Aisha Ahmed, represented the CBN Governor because the CBN Governor was said to be out of the country. On Thursday, the CBN Governor did not appear before the House because he was also said to be out of the country on an official assignment to the President. Mr. Femi Adesina had released a statement on Tuesday, or earlier this week, to say that the President was going to be traveling to Senegal for an agriculture, a summit on agriculture hosted by the President of Senegal. However, he did mention that the President would be returning on Wednesday, which the Speaker of the House had alluded to, that the President was back, so why was the CBN Governor not back? There's no statement yet released by the CBN, aside the letter which the Speaker of the House had mentioned was sent to them that he wasn't available to appear before them. Then leading to the topic of conversation today, which is the fact that the House of Reps Speaker has now said that they are going to issue a warrant of arrest to the CBN Governor. I'll just say one thing on this issue and then pass on to Doctor. I will defer to him in terms of the interpretation of the segments of the law that both, the House Speaker quoted in terms of his right. Yes, acknowledging that the CBN Governor has independence in the adjudication of his duties, but that they also have a right to ask that he comes before the House, and he can issue a warrant to a citizen of the nation, including the CBN Governor. In line with all the things that have been happening recently, it's difficult to not ask the question why the House of Assembly, particularly some members of the House, not the entire House, are against this 31st of January deadline. Why is it so important for them to see it extended, even asking that, okay, you can stop it as being legal tender, but you can allow months afterwards to still accept the exchange of old notes, and new notes. The drama is still unfolding. It would be great to hear what the CBN Governor would say in terms of his unwillingness or perhaps failure to appear before the House in the next few hours or days. But by Tuesday, the Speaker of the House, Honorable Bajabi Amile, has said he's going to institute the issue of warrant of arrest against the CBN Governor. Dr. Batu.
Okay, on Tuesday this week, both the Senate and the House of Representatives passed a resolution, more or less, asking the Central Bank of Nigeria to extend the January 31st deadline to July. This was the second time that both houses of the National Assembly will be making that request. Before now, the Senate had summoned the CBN Governor, and he appeared before that Senate to explain the Naira redesign policy and measures that had been taken. The House of Reps also summoned the CBN Governor before now. he sent a deputy governor to represent him, because this was at the time he was in the United States as part of the delegation of the president to attend the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit. And the explanations given by that deputy governor were basically the positions, an articulation of the position of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now, since then, what has been observed is that the measures that the CBN governor talks about, those measures, there have been criticisms about those measures. The banks not making the new notes available, either across the counter or through the ATM machines, as the CBN directed. The banks not working on Saturdays. The cash swap program that was introduced to address the concerns of persons in rural areas is going to also time out by January 31. Many people are not, getting the benefit of that initiative, such that, in fact, some supermarkets ahead of the deadline have stopped collecting the old notes, such that, in fact, in one wedding in Bako local government area in Niger State, in-laws rejected the money that was brought as bride price by a suitor. They returned the money. They said, you cannot come and take our brand new daughter with old notes. If you want a new thing, you come with new things. Okay, that's how, serious the situation is. And it's all of this that I think the House of Reps, the National Assembly, is inquiring into. Do they have the powers to do so? Well, as representatives of the people, I think they have the power to invite anybody to inquire into anything in the interests of the people of Nigeria. Do they have the powers to set up an ad hoc committee, as the House of Representatives chose to do, making the majority leader, Al-Hassan Dogara, the chairman of that ad hoc committee? Yes, they have such powers under Section 62 of the 1999 Constitution. Now, the House of Reps, not seeing the the CBN governor, with the excuse that first, the invitation came late. Second, he was away in Senegal with the president. I think they are back now. The president was in Katsina yesterday. So the House of Representatives now says they will invoke their powers under Section 89 of the Constitution, which gives the House the power to issue a warrant of arrest and ask the Inspector General of Police, or as the section says, any policeman, to arrest anybody against whom such a warrant is issued. And this is also in line with Order 19, subsection 1 of the rules of the House of Representatives. So, Honorable Gbajabiamila, the Speaker, is threatening that this will happen. But if you look at the Section 20, subsection 3 of the CBN Act that he is quoting, which talks about, upon demand, you must still honor, a particular currency. Well, as a lawyer, you ought to know that what you do is a community reading. You can't just pick one section of the CBN Act and read it in isolation. Because if you look at that same CBN Act, you read it all the way down to Section 24. It talks about the powers of the CBN to redesign notes, to issue new notes. The only person who has authority in that regard is the President of Nigeria. But the same CBN Act asserts the independence of the CBN. The second point, with regard to beyond community reading, is the fact that the House of Representatives Speaker, how does he intend to execute that warrant of arrest? Will the Inspector General of Police go and arrest the CBN governor? What are the implications for financial stability? We will just find ourselves in another ridiculous situation whereby we will be arresting our CBN governor. What signal would that send to the international community and also to investors? And in any case, even the House of Representatives will need to carry the president along. So how do they hope to navigate all of that? But as people lawmakers expressing concern on behalf of the Nigerian people, well, you cannot blame them. They can do that. The only power that they have in this regard, however, long term, is to change the law. So, we've seen it before, I think with the NDDC Act, they could change the law within 3-4 days. But would they get the concurrence of the Senate? Would the Senate go with the House of Reps? So it's a very difficult, tricky situation. And the advice would just be that nobody, be they lawmakers or, state officials, should not do anything that will further heat up the system, further make the financial situation, the fiscal space, more unstable, for Nigerians and for investors. So I saw the Speaker of the House, issuing threats and sounding like the policeman of the CBN. Well, he should look at it in a more, sober, more comprehensive manner. And I believe that, whatever it is, good reason will prevail at the end of the day.
I always hate to say I told you so, but if you play my tape yesterday, what did I say? I say more threats will come in the coming days. There will be more attacks to this policy. Less than 24 hours after I said that, you can hear one of the most brazen attacks on this policy. I analyze politically and I analyze making very logical arguments. What are the politicians afraid of about this policy? No money to buy votes, probably. Because I don't see the reason for all of it. It's a policy that has a lot of problems, and please don't get me wrong. And everybody must come to the table. The banks must come to the table. Everybody must come to the table. The CBN too must admit that they can ramp up logistics and do a whole lot more. The banks too must admit that they should fix their own problems. And we don't want to hear the case of banks selling the money to some people to favor some other people. Because in all of this, why is it so difficult for us to get in the ATMs and places where they change money in parties have this money, the new notes? So there's a lot of undercutting and dealings going on. But the political angle to it is what shocks me. Why the threats? To summon the CBN governor to speak about a policy that a lot of clarifications were made at the MPC meeting? Why the threats? I ask. Why? I wish the House of Reps speaker could be that vigorous in summoning service chiefs when they don't come and issue arrest warrant on them. I'll be very happy. Secondly, let us not interfere with the independence of the CBN. The CBN is independent. Or, at least, let us say, on its beats, the things it ought to do. Because if you check the core mandate of the CBN, how about currency regulation, monetary policy, and the likes? So why try to interfere by even going ahead to having a conclave to say that they should extend it till July? No, the National Assembly should not overreach itself. The CBN gave a deadline of the 31st. Let us stick to that. Why the push for the July after the elections? What is going on here? And in the middle of all of this, just 2 days ago, we heard a dog whistle. So are we putting off all of this together? Are we reading the tea leaves here? The CBN governor has not broken any part of the CBN Act. And I'm happy you pointed out the CBN Act, Dr. Abati. Let's read it in its entirety.
It's called community reading.
Yes. And there's a level of independence in the CBN. It's its remit. The timeline it is supposed to use for the change of currency is written in the Acts. And it has fulfilled that timeline. It's a 3-month window. Let us leave Mr. Emefiele out of this politics we are playing. If the policy has teething problems, as the problems come up, we'll start to fix them. But 31st of July, let's stick to that. And let's maintain the independence of the CBN, whether it suits us or not. We'll take a short break now. 31st of January, I should say, not July.